morning. You got an endocrinologist in the house today? Dr. Carlisle Goddard. Good morning. It's dark and every morning, Saturday morning, you tuned into living with heart disease, living with whatever ailment, and living with the stressors of life and all of those things. And every Saturday we come and we bring this to you, and we talk about modification of lifestyles, and then we know that that's where the key is, and we can add years to your life by just what you eat. That's exactly who you are. It's 9:04 on a Saturday morning. VOP 92.9, you tuning. Call your friends and listen. We've been talking about all type of diseases over the last few weeks, and today we're going to talk about endocrinology, and Dr. Carlisle Goddard is here, and I'm going to introduce him in a few seconds to you. But even before I get there, you remember I told you about the fish? And people were calling Cheryl. You remember you, Cheryl? Good morning to you, Cheryl. She called and she said about ways that we can prepare the fish. Some people actually, they like to smell the fish when they eat. All right, fine. If that's what you like, it's okay. It's appetizing that way, good. But some people don't. I feel that if you're going to eat meat, you shouldn't really smell and know what type of meat you're eating, man. You just want to taste good. So I got emails and texts from so many people about how to do this stuff, so I did it, guys. Went to the market, got the fresh fish, of course, and I got the guys to cut the stuff off and slice it up real good. Let me tell you, it worked, and I'll give you the formula. It's all about marinating. So, listen, you write it down, man. You guys who don't like to smell the fish, I did the stuff and I didn't smell a thing. I enjoyed that fish. As a matter of fact, I thought I was eating chicken. So, write it down. Here we go. When you would have sliced the fish, you wash it, okay? After washing that fish, get some lime, and let's say 4 limes, and cut them and squeeze the juice on the fish and leave even the skin, the whole half. That'll be 8 halves in there, and put in about, I would say, about 30 cc's to 40 cc's of vinegar. Mix it with your hands, of course, and leave it there for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, wash that out. As a matter of fact, let's go back a little bit. Put a little tip of salt, not too much. A little tip. Salt will cut a lot of stuff in there. Then you wash all of that out. The seasoning that I liked was the Jamaican jerk seasoning. It's got a flavor that, Anyway, I take some of that and I mix it into that nice, enough to really cover all the fish and so forth. And you put that now in the refrigerator overnight. Next day, try it. Baked, fried with olive oil, steamed, I don't care how you do it. You got fish and you don't smell a thing. And listen, tasty forever. So try that, guys. Try that, and you call me next week. Let me know how it worked out. I enjoyed mine. I ate some last night, ate some this morning, and I'm going to finish that when I go home. So thank you all for calling and giving all those nice tips about how to prepare your fish and to get the rankness out and so forth. So, well, Maxine, how you doing this morning? I know you're listening because Huzzy is here in the program, and Huzzy's thinking about you, and he cares a lot about you, and he said to himself he's got to set up a little greeting for you. So we got a nice song here, and then we'll come back and talk to him. That's how strong my love is. Otis Redding, you just imagine him and you. Yeah, that's how strong my love is. Otis Redding was great. That guy I love him. He had the voice, man. Gets right deep in you. We talking about years of that track was made right at Denny. Yeah. Anyway, endocrinology. What is endocrinology? A study of hormones and excretion of hormones. And we have so many hormones in the body. As a matter of fact, it's the balance of hormones that really causes us to function properly. And life in itself, even balance of forces, causes us to survive. Something goes up, something has to come down, so you even things out. So we have in the studio today Dr. Carlisle Goddard. We have everything in this island. We have endocrinology, we have neurology, we have orthopedic surgery, we have general surgery, we have internal medicine, we have, you name it, we have hematology, cardiology, all of those fields on the rock. So don't think that you have to go abroad to get your stuff done. Right here, we have specialists well-trained to take care of all of your medical needs. We have Dr. Goddard, Carlisle Goddard, in the studio. Good morning, Dr. Goddard.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Not bad. You mind if I call you Carlisle?
No, please.
Okay, good. So, Carlisle, you know, I want to thank you for coming. And just, we know I have sat down and watched your work. You are extremely dedicated and you have a passion for what you do. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that Dr. Goddard, this guy knows everything. But apart from being internal medicine and knowing internal medicine, he specialized in the treatment of glands. But let's even go back. Sometimes it's good to know about your doctor. Yes, he's good. He knows his profession. His hands are good at what he does. But what about him? We're going to find out a little bit about him today. Tell us, what is it like growing up as a boy? What do you want it to be? Let's say it's 11, 12.
Well, thank you for your kind and generous words. I've always wanted to be a doctor. I was born at St. Joseph Hospital at that time. And, you know, when I was born, there were a set of twins, about 4 sets of twins who were born on the same day. Mm-hmm. And we would always go back to the hospital and visit us. And the nuns would take us on the ward rounds around with the doctors on these trolleys. So we all get together and have a very good social time. So for me, a hospital was always a pleasant experience. So I knew from early that is where I wanted to be. And so my aim at that time was to go away, graduate as a doctor, and come back and work at the St. Joseph Hospital. As you know, it no longer functions as a hospital. So I'm here in the Rock, as you called it, and we're here to make Barbados healthier and better.
But, you know, you're different because I did not decide to become a physician until I was like 13, 14. But you knew it from earlier, right?
Yeah.
And you never at one time deviated from thinking that maybe you can do something else.
Yeah, at one point I had just finished my A-levels, and at that time I was in the Barbados Youth Orchestra, and I was the founding member of the Cordian Party Band. So I was always into music. So at that crossroads, I loved music and mathematics so much. I said, you know, maybe I should go and pursue this instead of medicine. So I did a year at UE saying this is what I was going to do. But for me, I like a challenge. And after my first at UE in science and so on, it wasn't challenging enough for me. So I said, you know what? Back to medicine. And so I just jumped back on the boat, and we remained there ever since.
What type of music do you play?
I played the clarinet, the saxophone, used to play the trumpet, play a little bit of the piano.
What's your favorite music?
The saxophone, anything in R&B and jazz.
And jazz, that's you.
Yeah.
So all right, so we're growing up as a teenager. Which school you went to, Harrison?
No, I went to Cordian Party in the north.
The north?
Always from the north.
Good. So you were up in the north, and then you probably were the head of your team, right? Because you got the leadership thing in you. You were like number one boy?
We had our moments, you know. There was a core group of us who used to compete for that first place.
Is that a healthy competition?
Yeah, right.
Did you ever come out on top all the time, or you got some guys
it was a 1 and 2 relationship. My buddy at the time, Joel Yard, who was also a Barbados scholar, we had really good times at this, you know, exchanging.
Oh, you got a scholarship?
I got a national scholarship, but not with the not to study medicine at the time, but later to pursue my fellowship.
Oh, got you. Okay. So then you went into from the A-levels, you went into UE, right? Good. And then what was the UE experience like?
UE at the time is the best thing ever. I think the UE experience have changed, but in my time, UE was a meeting pot of all the Caribbean minds, and that's where, and I believe in the UE concept because we have different Caribbean cultures, but so spread across all the islands. To have UE in the 3 central places: Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, with the strongholds of being law and arts in Barbados, medicine, Jamaica at the time, subsequently Trinidad. But Caribbean people moving across, we met a wider range of Caribbean people. And so I think the UE experience worked at that time because you left your home as a young boy or as a young girl. You go to an island which you hardly knew anything about, but being on campus, being on hall with all these different interesting people, you learn a different culture. And you don't even learn the host country's culture only. on the block or the various halls, there's so many different countries and people that you meet that by the time you leave UE after your 3 to 5 year experience, you're such a well-rounded Caribbean person in terms of food, in terms of the Creole, in terms of the idiolettes, in terms of how you interact with people, and you learn so much about the other islands and what makes us different but yet unique, and still as one person, one people, the Caribbean. So for me, going to Jamaica, it was an experience I would never forget, and a wonderful integration. I think having the different medical schools now in, say, Barbados and Trinidad and Jamaica, that detracts a little from the experience. I think having the stronghold of being, say, either in Jamaica or later in Trinidad, where you had those first 2 to 3 years, where you just leave your mother's house and you go out, because you have to develop into a person. It made you grow up faster, because you have to learn to survive and you have to learn to think outside the protection of your family. And so you develop and you grow up fast, and it made you more round and you get a greater experience. Now that we have all these medical campuses around, so many medical graduates are graduating, they're very limited in their focus and in their experience. And I think that has changed the UE experience. And so I'm a strong believer that you should leave your home and go to a different place, get an experience, and then bring that experience back into the island, where you're more rounded and you're far more mature now to deal with it. A lot of children who are young medical students who are here in Barbados, who are still in their household, still have that protection. And so when they go to the ER and they get a rough night, they're not ready yet, because they haven't had the real struggles of life to help them get that wrongness that I think comes from being on the outside territory. You go to other campuses then in America and England, you get a more international and global view than what is just locally available. All that impacts on your medical training, in fact, in any career development. So there comes a time when you need to leave home, go out, experience the world, and then come back with your new experiences.
Become a more rounded person.
Yes.
So tell us now, you finished medical school, and you're going on now, you get a scholarship to go and specialize. Tell us a little about that. Where was that?
Yeah, I went to King's College London, where I pursued a master's in endocrinology, and also I did international training in internal medicine at the time as well. So I then did my doctorate of medicine at UE, and also had experience at King's College and Essex, London, and in Essex in the UK, where I did more internal medicine and lots of clinical research in endocrinology. So I got a wider experience from the English experience. After getting my fellowship in endocrinology, I then did elective posts at Mayo, in Arizona, and other places in America now, to get a more rounded feel, or the American flavor, so to speak, to endocrinology. So that also then widened my experience in endocrinology. So I had a UK training, and then wider experience from the American side of training. And then I brought all of that with me back to Barbados. And so in my practice, I can float between the UK guidelines and UK practices and American guidelines and American fellowships. I also have some American fellowships, which helps me, keep me up to date and keep me grounded on both sides.
Is there a fundamental difference between the way the English approach endocrinology versus the way the Americans do?
Yeah, fundamentally, the English system is far more on a hands-on experience. And so in the British system, you have to have a more clinical background. You need to use your hands and your mind first in terms of determine what you have before you can then come to a clinical diagnosis. The American field, where there's so many diagnostics, you do far more testing and so on first when you meet your patient before you come to the conclusion. And so having learned, for me, I don't over-investigate a patient. I try to figure out what is available to them and what their signs they come from, their history and their presentation, and put that together, come up with an educated differential, and then choose my investigations. In America, where there's so many investigative measures that are affordable to you, you just send the patients out to get everything under the sun, and then come back and you say, well, this is abnormal, that's all, let's put it together. So I find the English experience that forces you to think a bit more and come to a clinical diagnosis, as opposed to using all the diagnostics available.
Yeah, so the Americans, they come into you and you just send all the tests out, and then based on which one is abnormal, this is like the clinicians now in Europe, they have to use their faculty, their mental power and their gray matter, figure out narrow down to the differential to 1, 2, or 3, and then say, in other words, you would think that you think more as a UK physician as opposed to the American guys. They put all the labs out there, put the X-ray, CAT scan, everything, and then it says, hey, let those things make the diagnosis for us. That might be almost like that, no?
Yeah, well, not as black and white, because I'm sure in the American system you still have to think quite a bit. But the difference is the affordability of investigations are much more readily available in the American setting than, say, in the British system. The NHS is very specific in what you can get, by whom you can get. So you have to really think twice before you seek an investigation. Whereas for the general physician in America, all these diagnostic things are available. You just send the patient to the lab with a script and they come back with results. And then based on the results, you can refer on. But, you know, where money is tight, economic things are tight, you have to be very careful in what you send people for and at what time you send them for tests.
Well, I tell you, you see, we're moving along and it's 9:21 Saturday morning. You're sitting there with your cup of coffee and your bacon in your left hand with a little bit of saltfish that is washed out. The salt is out. Don't forget, you don't want your pressure to be too high now, and you're listening to Living, and you're speaking to Dr. Carlisle Goddard, endocrinologist and internal medicine, and he is the guy that you know. But my point is that, you see, he's gone through the whole thing. He's gone through the fire and come through. And what gratification you get now giving back all of this knowledge to your people?
People getting well and seeing their faces. I think in this current world, a lot of persons are frustrated and they want alternatives. And in a fast-paced society where you go to a doctor's office, you're in and out in 5 or 7 minutes. You know, the UK guidelines said you should spend 12 minutes with the patient. So, you know, you actually have a time slot now to fulfill. So people are trying to turn people over. We no longer listen to people. The original tenets of medicine is to take a good history, hear your patient. And I think if we spend more time listening to our patients, we can get to the diagnosis quite easily, because just by listening, you're now focusing your thoughts and your investigations to help your patients. But in this high-paced world, as I said earlier, a lot of people are on so many stressors. You just take, you know, a couple of minutes of your busy schedule and just offload all that stress that you're carrying around with you. You feel better already. The doctor might not have done anything magical for you, but you've offloaded. And so you went in heavy, you leave lighter. You feel so much, the day changes. So when you have a physician who is willing to spend time with you, hear your problems fully, and give you that chance to express yourself, and then refocus the conversation and to conclude with a good outcome where you know what you came in with, you have a package in terms of your focus, what your illness is, and try to remove the stressors, that makes life a lot easier. So for my gratification, it comes from seeing my patients get better. Now, having said that, my patients will tell you getting me angry is also not a good thing, because when you don't follow the rules, or you go and overeat the night before and say, "Doctor, I had this to eat and doctor eat," and your blood sugar is now 15 and 16. Of course, I'm being angry because I have a passion for diabetes and for your health. So if you willingly go and sin, there must be a price. You know, there must be a price for your sins.
Yeah. You see, so it'd be difficult patients, but we try to work with them. And you know what? Tell me something though. What is like in constraints of time? What is a typical day in about a minute? A typical day for Dr. Carlisle Goddard. You get up in the morning. Tell me what you do.
Well, typical day is getting about 4:30. Some quiet reflection, and then after that I try to get up and have a good run. I either go running with my family, or I will take one of my dogs out and we have a good run. If the run is good and we can get to the beach to end the run, we then spend about 20 minutes or so in the beach. Failing that, I try to take at least 2 days in the week where I just take an hour and go swimming just to relax. After that, I hit the office, and I'm locked down in the office. And to dispose between that is the hospital calls. Sometimes you have critical patients you need to run out, or if the morning is a pleasant morning, you can start with the hospital first. You put the hospital into routine first, see your sick patients out, then you get back in the office. You're in the trenches until the end of the day. Then from there, before I head on home, I go back to the hospital, make sure everything is quiet, because I'm in the north, the hospital is in town, so it's a good drive at 3 o'clock in the morning, so you make sure all is quiet.
So what time your day ends?
My day can end anywhere about midnight to 1 o'clock.
Oh my goodness! So what time you have for the family?
Well, family. The beauty of that is that family is always interdispersed. At the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, the end of the day. my wife is very supportive. She comes, she visits, and she quiets down the angry day, and then she allows me to offload in the evening, because the whole day of being in the office in the trenches, we're hearing a lot of people's complaints, a lot of people's illness. You too need to be treated as a physician too. You have to pour out your sins, pour out your soul, pour out your frustration. So someone has to listen to that, and I guess that's part of the definition of the word spouse, isn't it?
So weekends, you spend a lot of time weekends with family?
Yeah, weekend is family time. But of course, Saturday is still office time. So again, on Saturday, Sundays are office time. But then Sundays is God's Day and family day. Try our best to get to church. Just have a different doctor minister to you. And then family again, we spend a lot of family time. We have a running group in the afternoons. We do a run in the afternoon. So children try to offload.
And the children?
Family's focused and tight. So we're enjoying that.
Yeah, maybe next year when you come in the program, we have a boy or a girl here, All right, let me ask you a quick couple of, I'll give you 15 seconds for just a couple of topics. Diabetics, what you want to tell them?
To know yourself and know your limits. You'll hear a lot of information about it, but don't do this, don't do that. Remember, life is about moderation. You have an illness that's related to your lifestyle and your or your lack of lifestyle changes. So focus on what you eat sensibly, choose wisely when you go to the supermarket and shop, use more fiber in your diet, and above all, you must get a minimum of half an hour of exercise. Just find some form of exercise that you like to do and engage that and include that in any aspect of your daily living, because you're always eating, so you have to burn it off. What goes in must come out, so you have to make sure that balance remains part of your life.
You remember, Dr. Goddard is also in all type of endocrine type of diseases. How about hyperthyroidism?
Hyperthyroidism is just as equally as common as diabetes, and the thyroid is one of the most important glands in the body, and it regulates almost everything. It regulates your body temperature, your heart rate, your skin growth, your moods, your other hormone production. So it's an extremely integral gland to the body. And so hyperthyroidism, where there's excessive thyroid hormone, you tend to be in a hyper state where you're always, anxious, you're losing weight, you're agitated, you're always eating, your menstrual cycle in females go off, you have difficulty sometimes conceiving, and you're always sweating, always shaking, and just the slightest thing will agitate you. It's a relatively common condition, very easy to treat. And so, you see your physician, and they refer you on, and we get you sorted out.
Good. And lastly, where do you see in 5 years from now you are one of the leaders or one of the guys involved in moving forward with endocrinology in this country? Where you see us going in 5 years?
Well, I think our major problem in endocrinology is diabetes. Whereas we have some fertility issues, some thyroid issues, some pituitary gland issues, the main one is diabetes. And in Barbados, where 1 in 11 persons have diabetes, within the next 5 years, unless there's a massive lifestyle change and people start to embrace exercise and eating properly, diabetes will be in every household, probably in a 1 in 6 ratio if we continue this. So all endocrinologists and all general physicians have to be engaged in the battle against diabetes. With the opening of the coming opening of the Diabetes Foundation Center in Warrens, we're hoping that is a flagship where persons can be refocused in their management of diabetes, get a holistic approach to diabetes, and so we can have teachers come to teach them about their nutrition, about exercise, what their numbers should be, what are some of the things that makes the numbers difficult to achieve. So everybody will be on board for this stream, because diabetes has to be controlled and has to be eradicated, but it can only begin with us if we know it is genetic, which we can't change, but it's lifestyle, which you can modify. And as long as you continue to modify your lifestyle, you can delay diabetes. If you get diabetes at 104 years old, then that's fine. But if you get it at 16, it's a completely different story. Exactly. So if you know from early that you have a genetic pool where you're predisposed to diabetes, do everything you can to make sure you can control it or eradicate it,
Guys, I want to thank you for listening. You wouldn't get that information like that very, very often, so I hope you wrote those things down. We want to thank Dr. Carlisle Goddard for coming in, endocrinologist on the island, and he's here always. You see him all over the place, and he takes his work very seriously. When I'm leaving the hospital, he's coming in. I want to thank you for coming, and we leave today, and we love you guys. Be careful, you beautiful Christina Aguilera, and I'll see you next week.
Barbados.